As children, we never really questioned making time for the things we loved: drawing, playing, making up stories. These weren't just distractions from schoolwork, they were just as important because joy itself was important. But somewhere along the way, growing up taught us otherwise. We were made to believe that making time for what we enjoy is a luxury, something to be earned, something we could only afford after finishing everything else. And yes, life did get in the way. Deadlines, assignments, routines, responsibilities. Some days it feels like we barely have space to breathe. But here's the truth we often forget: it is still our responsibility to make time, not just for work, not just for survival, but for the little things that makes us feel alive. To do things not because we are good at them, not because they'll lead somewhere, but simply because they are fun, because they are ours, because we enjoy them. Okay, when was the last time you did something you enjoy? Something just for you? Do it. This week, I was reminded of that by a simple task in week 2 of the Artist's Way. I had to write down 20 things I truly enjoy and then ask myself, when was the last time I did them? The surprising part was how long it had been, even for the simplest of joys. So I decided to pick one and do it. Not as a reward, not as a luxury, but as a necessity. Because making time for things we enjoy is not selfish, it's important. This idea of enjoying small things carried into my week two's artist date as well. So, this week for my artist date, I did something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I went on my first ever solo movie date, and honestly, I didn't even plan it before in hand. Like, I didn't do it 2 or 3 days before or planned it week before, because if I had done that, I would have probably ended up cancelling it the last minute out of anxiety. I decided to do it on the morning of the artist date itself. I was like, what if I go and watch a movie alone today? So that is how the plan came to life. And honestly, because I've been postponing this for a while now, deciding it and doing it the last minute was the best way to do it, because sometimes being spontaneous is the best way to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Because I feel like when you do it spontaneously, you push yourself, but before you realize you've pushed yourself, you're already done with that thing, I don't know if this makes sense, but sometimes being spontaneous is the best way to do that thing you've been afraid to do, so go ahead and do it. So when I went to the movie alone, I was slightly anxious at first because obviously I was alone and there were so many people around me in the mall and stuff. But once I actually settled in, I started realizing how freeing it felt, and I honestly enjoyed the whole movie. By the way, I went to watch the movie Mahavatar Narasimha and I loved it. I definitely loved it, and I loved the fact that these kind of movies are being made. We need to watch them. People need to watch these kind of movies. It instills a sense of value, dharma in us, which we really need. And I feel like these kind of movies are like reminders for us to tap into the dharma within us, which we tend to forget in today's noise. So the movie was absolutely good, and if you haven't watched it already, I definitely recommend you to go watch it. Now, while I was on the artist date, what I noticed was being alone actually made me more present. I was very observant of my atmosphere. I was noticing the little things, and I was drawing inspiration from everything that was happening in front of me, like in the movie, and also in things that was happening around me. So that was really good, and that is when I realized why the Artist's Way emphasizes so much on solo dates, because it is not just about the activity, whether it is going on a movie or going on a date. It is also about giving yourself permission to spend time with you, to listen to your thoughts, to deal with yourself alone, and also to listen to that inner artist child, which often gets drowned out in today's noise and today's noisy hustle culture world. So I feel like this was much needed, especially for me, and I loved it. So artist date week 2 was definitely a win. week 2 of the Artist's Way was refreshing in its own way, whether it was doing that DIY activity or whether it was going on my first ever solo movie date. It reminded me of how much joy little things can bring in life. And the highlight of this week is definitely the fact that I went on my first ever solo movie date. I'd been scared to do this since a very long time, but once I actually went, it felt so liberating. I realized that most of the hesitation is actually just in my head, and I realized that sometimes pushing yourself even in small ways can open up a whole new sense of freedom for you. So this is your reminder: if there is something you'd been scared to do for a while now, go do it. And the DIY activity was actually quite fun too. The reason I did that this week is because there was a task this week in the Artist's Way week 2 where we had to list down 20 things you enjoy. Basically, I enjoy. And right next to that, I had to write down the last time I did them. Basically, when was the last time I did these activities which I actually enjoy? And surprisingly, there were some of them which I absolutely enjoy doing, but it had been months since I had done them. It is surprising yet sad to see how long we go without doing things we love and we just enjoy. And DIY was that task for me. So I decided to do that this week. And DIY is something, in fact, I've always enjoyed and loved. In fact, I have dedicated some YouTube videos also on my channel just for DIY because I still enjoy them so much. I still do. And so doing this activity reminded me of that joy and it felt really fun. Now, coming to the tasks of this week, there were 10 tasks this week and I did all of them. And while reflecting on this week's tasks and just this week in general, one thing I realized is that in the past few weeks, I've started to be in alignment with what I say I will do, which means that basically my actions have started reflecting my words, which is a good thing because I can see that it is slowly but surely impacting my self-esteem and definitely in a positive way. So that is something I'm actually quite happy about. And one more thing I learned this week is that the Artist's Way isn't just about becoming more creative. I mean, it is about improving your creative journey and becoming better as an artist, but it isn't just about becoming more creative or producing more work. It is also about reconnecting with yourself, building a good relationship with yourself and reconnecting with yourself in ways that will genuinely shift the way you see yourself, your work and the world. So that is something I observed while I was reading the content of this week and also doing the tasks of this week. So that is about week 2. Week 2 was a good one and I'm really excited to see the next 10 weeks. Hopefully all of them will be going well. And that is all for today's video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.